Trump ultimately did sign it into law after saying that he didn't think this was a necessary step to make all of these things public. And those two lawmakers that I mentioned, they have said that this release is significant, but that it's not enough, that they're not satisfied with everything that they've received. And they take a couple issues with how this played out. Some of the deadlines that were given to the Department of Justice were missed. And then on top of that, they are questioning why some things were redacted and left out. Also questioning how some of the names were not redacted, things that should have been taken care of. So they are requesting some more information from Blanche. Blanche has said that he is open to having those conversations.
Thanks so much for the update. And that is not the last of the Epstein files, as I mentioned live there with CNN's Julia Benbrook. Just when you thought the Epstein files were being delayed and forgotten about, there's been a big drop over the weekend, and there's some big names in these files. And I just want to remind you that there's a difference between being in the emails and on this so-called list. But let's talk about it. Joining me live now is former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. Mick, thanks so much for your time. Geez, there's some big names here. Can we start perhaps with Bill Gates? He's in Australia at the moment. He was at the tennis. He's issued a denial. But geez, this is damaging.
It is, Laura, but you have to give sort of the right preface here, which is this is raw data. Just because something is in the file doesn't mean it's necessarily true. And that's what a lot of folks are saying, is that anybody can say anything about anybody these days, and they do, and now it's end up in the file. So we have to be very careful about jumping to conclusions. That being said, a lot of the information that has come out, or at least some of it is contained in sworn affidavits by alleged victims and so forth. So you probably give that a little bit of credit, at least if someone's willing to sign an affidavit. But look, you're right. The bottom line is this, is that there's a ton of salacious information in here, several million documents unloaded, as typical on a Friday or a Saturday, a news dump going into the weekend to try and lower its profile. But the bottom line is it's going to be weeks, and that's not an exaggeration, before people go through all of the documents that were unloaded this weekend. And if you believe folks at the FBI, roughly half of the documents remain unproduced at this point, so there could be more in the future.
Okay, interesting. I wonder how they are dividing it up in terms of what is released and what isn't. But what is clear to me at the moment, there's so much interest in this, and there's a lot of guilt just by association of Jeffrey Epstein, because now we have all of this hindsight, right? But what strikes me is the amount of sucking up to Jeffrey Epstein that these powerful people were willing to do, even after he was convicted of these sex offences, is just baffling. Can you give us an idea of, when he was alive, just how powerful he was, and why did that power remain even after these convictions?
You know, I didn't move in those circles, so I didn't know Jeffrey Epstein. I know a bunch of the people who are named in various pieces of these files and so forth in these reports. If you're asking me, do I think that sex and power have an impact on people? Yeah, they probably have for a long time, and it looks like that's what this was about. One of the more interesting things that, to your point, Laura, that's come up over the last 48 hours is whether or not these documents seem to indicate that the Kremlin was involved somehow in Epstein's operation. Was the KGB helping to fund this? That could go to your point about, why would